It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. For 4 decades, Detroit has had the same law on the books. A landlord can't rent you a home until the city has inspected, registered it, proven it's safe to live in. But the problem is, almost nobody follows it. Today, roughly 1 in 7 rentals actually meets that bar. The city rewrote the law in 2017 and again in 2024 to raise that number. And still, it's barely moved. Detroit is a sharp version of a problem you'll find in many cities built on old, cheap housing. The law says, fix the place up. The math says, don't even bother. It can cost more to bring an old house up to code than the rent will ever pay back. So, landlords don't. Here's what that looks like in one house near the Bagley neighborhood. Windows nailed shut. No heat on the second floor. Sewage backing up into the basement. A family is living that reality in a home the city never cleared to be a rental. My guest reported on that family in the Bagley neighborhood. He's spent years uncovering how the law fails and who pays for it. Senior reporter Aaron Mondry with Outlier Media. Aaron, welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me, Robin.
So as I mentioned, this law requiring landlords to get their properties inspected and registered with the city has been on the books for about 40 years. And the city keeps trying to make it stick. Yet you found only about 1 in 7 rentals comply. Why isn't the law being followed?
Well, a few reasons, and I think you previewed them pretty effectively. But we can start with, say, ticketing and enforcement. The stick method, penalties are still relatively low. Now, the ordinance was updated fairly substantially in 2024 to give the city the power to put liens on people who don't pay those blight tickets. I don't know how many liens the city has placed for non-payment because the city wouldn't tell me. They didn't answer any of my questions, in fact.
Which is a point we are going to get into a little bit more. I think that's important to point out, but go on.
Okay, so enforcement maybe not as strong as it could be, but I think more importantly, landlords say the city still isn't making it easy for them, placing unnecessary bureaucratic hurdles in their way, applying standards inconsistently. For example, I heard multiple people say they'll register their property, an inspector will come out and issue correction orders for items A, B, and C. They'll fix them, and then another inspector will come out, cite them for issues D, E, and F, and the process continues. And as you said, this is expensive. These are old properties by and large that we have in Detroit. There's going to be lots of issues. One landlord told me that if the city doesn't want them to bring their properties into compliance, they can make it practically impossible. They can nitpick here and there, lots of different issues. And the ones that I spoke to are the ones that are trying to comply. Okay. But they say the city is treating them the same way they'd treat slumlords or people actively trying to avoid compliance. Yeah, go ahead.
This sounds like, as with many issues we discuss here on the Metro and many issues that you report on, this isn't black and white. There's a really big gray area here. I want to think about first, though, what exactly this certificate of compliance is supposed to guarantee for the person who lives in one of these homes.
There is a 15-point checklist of items that landlords have to pass in order for them to get their certificate. And these are largely related to health and safety issues. So no holes in the roof, no active leaks, heat, running water, hot water, no mold, no pests, things like this. So if the landlord successfully passes this inspection, presumably the property is in solid shape. I won't say great shape, but solid shape. These are health and safety matters.
Aaron, these sound like basic things, though. And so you're hearing from landlords that are saying it ends up being far too costly for them. And some of them even feel that they're being retaliated against. Can you talk about that a little more and explain that?
That's a fair point. These are some fairly basic things. There are a couple of items on there that are technically related to health and safety, but can get a little nitpicky. For example, there needs to be proper ingress and egress. So in the example in the story, the window's nailed shut. That's an obvious violation. But I think something like doors cannot have more than a 1/4 inch gap at any one point in order for the door to be able to open and close really easily. Some landlords told me that the city can get incredibly nitpicky with this tiny thing, and have long back and forths. And so, for technically they're operating illegally in the city. They may still be getting tickets and correction orders, especially, the most common ticket in the city of Detroit is for not having a certificate of compliance.
Wow.
And if you don't have your blight tickets cleared, I believe you're not able to get a certificate of compliance either.
I want to think about the family near the Bagley neighborhood that we have both mentioned that you feature in your story. And I think the inclusion of this experience makes your reporting so much more human, so much more compelling. Again, we're talking about a family living in a home with windows nailed shut, no heat on the second floor, sewage backing up into the basement. Tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, this is precisely the kind of situation and family the law was intended to protect. You have a single mother with 2 children, and she has been forced to live in a home that is clearly, is subpar conditions, would never pass an inspection because of the issues that you cited. The management is so absent that she hadn't heard from her property manager in months. So she didn't even know who to pay rent to, except when she got an eviction notice in April.
Wow.
They both agreed that she would move out of the house. I think her name's Nubala. She wanted to leave anyway. She had until today, I believe, June 8th. I messaged her recently. She still hasn't found a place.
And that's why you use the word forced, because it's been difficult for her to find other housing? Or
yes. I mean, single motherhood is challenging enough.
Sure.
And she's a working mom, and now she has to find the time to search for a place, view properties, find a place that's in acceptable condition. But as you noted, just 14% of rentals in Detroit have gotten their certificate of compliance. And she says every place she's seen has been substandard.
For a tenant stuck in one of these homes right now, what gives them a fighting chance?
There's a couple of things that renters have at their disposal that they can do. One is they can call the city's building department, and they will send out an inspector. They'll issue correction orders. They'll start the ticketing process. That may provide a slight nudge. The other thing they can do is put their rent in escrow, so they can set up a separate account that's just dedicated to, their rental money. So they put it in this account instead of sending it directly to their landlord to encourage them to fix up these problems. These carry their own risks though. Because, creating an adversarial relationship with your landlord means they might try to evict you.
They know you're on to them, essentially.
Yeah. And, at the very least, they can just choose not to renew your lease at the end of the term. That's something else I've written about. There's really no protections for renters at the end of a lease. Landlords just simply don't have to renew it. And then they can file for termination of tenancy, it's called. And then you're back in the same situation you were before.
So it's a real gamble. You're really taking a chance to try and protect yourself against a landlord who may be acting in bad faith.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent with Aaron Mondry, senior reporter at Outlier Media. We've been discussing a Detroit rule that's 40 years old and largely ignored. Every rental is supposed to be registered and certified safe. and Aaron's reporting shows hardly any are. I'm wondering, Aaron, past the unsafe conditions themselves, what does this cost people?
Well, eviction is very costly. Even if it's self-eviction, if you just decide to move because your house is unsafe. If it comes to an eviction, renters now have an eviction on their record, which makes it harder to rent in the future.
Right.
Cities have to spend money on homelessness services if people get evicted and can't find shelter. Eviction costs schools funding. It can cause job loss if you move away from your job and you don't have reliable transportation. It hurts economic activity if people leave the city. There's a whole bunch of costs. And then, of course, there's the deeply personal loss to individuals to constantly uproot their lives or live in substandard housing.
I mean, as you have mentioned, Aaron, and as you've reported on, the city has tried easier inspections. It's tried higher fines. It's tried liens. But a Center for Community Progress study found the real obstacle may be the numbers. For a lot of landlords, as we have discussed, fixing an old house costs far more than the rent will bring back. So they just don't do it. My question to you is this. Is this a Detroit failure? Or is this the predictable result of regulating cheap housing in a market with no money in it?
Ooh. I think you hit on something very important. It's hard to run a profitable rental business in Detroit when the maximum rent you can earn is not very high and may barely cover your costs. And then on top of that, you have bureaucratic costs imposed by the city. So yes, this is a challenge. And earnest landlords who want to comply, who want to provide safe housing, say that this law is overly burdensome to them and that the city needs to make it easier. And that instead, the city should be doing more targeted enforcement, going after people that are flaunting the law, that aren't even bothering to register, are actively creating slumlord-like situations. Those are the biggest dangers to the city, and everyone would be better off if that was the city's approach.
From your reporting, do you agree with that? Have you been able to kind of bear that out with your reporting?
That makes sense to me. I mean, to take the first claim, most landlords that I've talked to say that, yes, it's very hard to run a rental business in Detroit. Other costs that we haven't talked about, insurance, taxes, those are especially high in Detroit, very high. So, and you're seeing mortgage or foreclosures. We've seen lots of rental businesses fail in recent years. I reported on a whole wave of them in Palmer Park. Jonathan Holtzman, a very well-known developer and landlord, his entire portfolio is gone. There are many other instances of this. So I think there are indicators that what they're saying is true. We also know that there are a lot of slumlords and bad actors in Detroit that are looking to take advantage of cheap housing and not invest in them. That's another thing I've reported a lot about. So yeah, by and large, I would agree with that opinion.
Now, enter Mayor Mary Sheffield. She's made going after bad landlords a signature of her first months. Joint inspections, court-ordered fixes, and liens. She's targeting 61 problem buildings and 65 senior complexes. From your reporting, is this genuinely new, or is this a promise Detroit has made before?
I still think it might be too early to say. I've been hearing signals from the city that indicate they are taking a more pointed and serious approach to this issue. Trying to identify buildings before they fail, either financially or condition-wise, and make sure the tenants are taken care of is a good and worthwhile thing to do. So I do applaud the city for that. prior to Sheffield, the city has aggressively been going after a couple of prominent speculators, both of whom I've reported on. Dennis Kefalanos signed a settlement agreement with the city to bring all of his vacant property up to code, and Real Token as well. The city is in active litigation with them, and they own 700 properties in the city. So I think that the city is taking a more serious approach to going after slumlords, and that's a positive thing.
At the same time, you sent the city questions about this very story, about this topic, and you gave the city a lot of time to respond to you. You said, we're trying to publish this story on this date. Here's how much time you have. Then you waited even longer. You tried again and gave the city more time to reply, and you never got a response. For me, as a fellow journalist, that signals to me something that's not good when it comes to what the city is prioritizing.
It was pretty disappointing. I can only speculate as to why they didn't respond. And I don't know what more I can say beyond that.
Yeah, that's fair. We want to hear from the city so that we can understand where they stand with everything. And this just it leaves a lot of unanswered questions. And here's the skeptic's case. Tell me if it's fair. Sheffield's enforcement, and again, we have to speculate a little bit here because we don't have the city on the record, but Sheffield's enforcement so far is aimed at big apartment and senior buildings. But the problem is also among thousands of scattered single-family rentals, houses like the one with the sewage in the basement that you reported on. Does her crackdown actually reach that house, or is that tenant still on her own?
I don't know. I mean, it's a big city. There's a lot of properties. There's a lot of problem properties. I think making this ordinance work, that is the certificate of compliance ordinance, would go a long way to improving housing quality in the city. I think another thing that would help a lot is to have more open corporate laws for us to understand who truly owns these properties, so we can put together a comprehensive database of the worst actors in the city. So currently, if you are a property owner, you can effectively hide your identity. You can use shell companies or hundreds of different LLCs to scatter, make it look like these are all owned by different individuals. This is a state problem. State law needs to change. We need to have corporate transparency laws change in the state. And if we could, then again, we could pierce the corporate veil, as it's called, and put together a more comprehensive list of the worst actors in the city.
I mean, you've also reported on, when we think about bad actors, you've reported on Detroit's Right to Counsel program, which its intention is to protect tenants from bad actors, essentially. It's free lawyers for renters who are facing eviction. Can a lawyer turn that missing certificate of compliance into a defense for a tenant?
It's a little tricky. There's no yes or no answer here. It's highly dependent on the case. From my understanding, judges are looking more at conditions and less whether or not it has a certificate of compliance. So no, a certificate of compliance by and large is not going to be a defense that's going to be successful in every case.
Huh. Okay, so that further complicates the situation.
But I don't want to downplay the importance of right to counsel.
Sure.
There are lots of other legal strategies that tenants and now their lawyers can employ when they're trying to fight an eviction. And these lawyers obviously know the law. They know the best defenses that they can use, and they know which motions to file. overall, right to counsel has been a big boon to tenants across the city.
I mean, it seems like it's been transformative. I should note, though, cities all over the country pass tenant safety laws that go unenforced. So I want to end on this. If Detroit cracks this problem, experts say it could be a national model. You've reported on this. So is it crackable? I like the complicated smile you just made.
I don't know. I really don't. I think that there are ways to improve it. I think we can absolutely up compliance. The city's goal in 2024, when it passed the update, was a fairly modest one. Let's get compliance to 30% in 2 years. It's at 14%. Can we get to 30%? That will make an impact on tens of thousands of homes. That's a big deal. We're never going to get to 100% in Detroit. We're not. There's people that are always going to skirt the law. But even incremental increases in compliance is going to matter to Detroit renters.
Aaron Mondry is a senior reporter with Outlier Media. His reporting has informed and empowered many renters in Detroit, myself included. Aaron, thank you so much.
Thank you, Robin.
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. Up next, we're staying on the topic of housing because the city's leaders say it's one of the most crucial pieces in making Detroit stronger and improving daily life. But the Right to Counsel program Aaron Mondry just mentioned, the free lawyers who represent tenants facing evictions, is about to run out of money. The judge whose court hears every one of those cases is with us next, Chief Judge William McConaughey of the 36th District Court. Stay with us.